If you've ever gone through the pockets of an old pair of jeans and found a $20 bill, you likely felt it was like winning a mini lottery. And if you were like many of us, you may have been more inclined to blow that $20 on something frivolous. Well, you can blame that kind of thinking on mental accounting. Mental accounting is the phenomenon where we treat money differently based on a number of variables, such as where it came from. Even though a dollar found in our pants is worth the same as a dollar found in our savings account. So as another example, if you earn salary plus commissions, you may be more likely to use the salary for regular monthly living expenses. You may also be more likely to use any commissions earned for irregular, frivolous spending. For some reason, the money just feels differently, and a lot of that has to do with how we label money. Now, there are lots of other examples of mental accounting, but for now, I just want to draw your attention to some new research which suggests how mental accounting can lead to suboptimal spending decisions when it comes to emergency spending, and what we can do about it. To make a very long story short, it's been found that every dollar put into retirement savings plans sponsored by an employer, about 30 to 40% of that is withdrawn before retirement. So there's a problem in which many of us raid our retirement savings, and a lot of that might be for paying for emergencies. In other words, many people with retirement savings treat that account as both for retirement and as a backup safety plan in place of an emergency fund. But here's why that might be a problem. I spoke to Dr. Bridget Madrian, a professor and dean of the Brigham Young University Marriott School of Business, and one of the authors of a new research paper that looks into this phenomenon. And she basically said, look, if you have an emergency, let's say your fridge breaks down and it would cost you $1,000 to replace it or whatever. If you didn't have a dedicated emergency fund, but were relying on your retirement fund as sort of a backstop, you might say, oh, look, I've got $100,000 in there. I could replace my broken $1,000 fridge with a really nice $2,000 fridge. It's only $2,000 out of this big pot of money, $100,000. Or maybe this one broken appliance might lead you to think about an entire kitchen renovation once you start thinking that you can tap into this large pot of money, which is supposed to be for your retirement. So it's a very slippery slope. And we may be tempted to overspend on emergencies when we are pulling from such a large pot of money. And so the fix is actually quite simple. Set up a dedicated emergency fund. And now what would happen is that if you had a $1,000 fridge break down, you would be pulling from a much smaller pot of money. It would be less tempting to overspend. And so instead of upgrading to a $2,000 fridge when pulling money from a very large account, you may be more likely to simply replace the fridge for $1,000 when pulling from a small, dedicated emergency fund. One thing I know that leads a lot of people to forego emergency accounts when they have built up larger retirement accounts is that they don't want to have cash sitting in an account earning almost nothing in an emergency fund, which is usually always a savings account, when it could instead be put into longer-term investments that could potentially grow much larger down the road for retirement. And so that's a totally logical thought. But us humans are not always logical in practice. If we forego a dedicated emergency fund and instead tap into our retirement savings for emergencies, which can lead us to spending more than normal for true emergency expenses, then it's quite possible that the future value of the money that we pull out of our retirement funds is greater than the future value of the money we don't contribute in the first place because we put that money instead into a separate dedicated emergency fund. More simply put, if having a dedicated $5,000 emergency fund, as an example, prevents us from funding a $50,000 home renovation that we didn't really need, and we pull that money from our retirement savings, that's not a bad trade-off at all. And of course, everybody is different. Some people are just really good at making optimal money decisions all the time, but most of us are not. By partitioning retirement funds from emergency funds with dedicated accounts, our mental accounting might lead us to leave retirement funds for retirement and emergency funds for emergencies without mixing the two. If you have an example where you treated money differently based on where it came from, share it with us down in the comments below. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe, and also hit the bell to get notifications for when new videos are posted. Thanks for watching.